Chapter 18. The Arcane Order's Command. The journey from the outskirts to the palace was tense, the stillness broken only by the rhythmic clatter of hooves on cobblestone. Elowen, still carrying the weight of battle, kept her focus on the road ahead. Her thoughts were a tangled mess: worry for Elric, unease over the creatures that had attacked them, and the gnawing certainty that their actions tonight would have consequences beyond what they could foresee. But she was resolute. Bringing Elric to the palace, enforcing her will in that decision, was not something she regretted. The Arcane Order, her guardians, had done their part. Now it was time to return the favour. As the palace gates groaned open, Elowen's gaze sharpened at the tense atmosphere lingering over the grounds. The royal guards, normally steadfast in their duties, stood rigid, their eyes shifting warily between the approaching riders and the newly arrived Arcane Order. The Order had already positioned themselves with practiced precision, dark, enchanted armour gleaming beneath the torchlight. Their arcane shields shimmered faintly, their gazes cold and unreadable. The knights at the gate stepped forward for their usual inspection, only to hesitate as the Arcane Order stood firm.
"By whose order?"
one knight demanded, suspicion lacing his tone. Lyra, who had remained composed throughout the journey, took a single step forward, her golden eyes gleaming with quiet defiance. "By the princess's order," she replied evenly. "She decides her own security. Your presence is unnecessary." The knight opened his mouth to protest, but another voice cut through the tension. "The Arcane Order will be permitted to oversee the princess's safety." Sir Golwyn, head of the Royal Guard, stepped forward, his deep voice leaving no room for argument. A towering presence, Golwyn carried an air of unwavering authority. Though bound by his loyalty to the royal family, his allegiance to Elowen had never wavered. His firm stance silenced the guards, forcing them to swallow whatever objections they had. The nobles had grumbled ever since the Arcane Order had been placed in charge of her protection. While none dared openly defy her father's decree, Elowen could feel the mounting pressure of their discontent. But for now, Sir Golwyn's command held. For now, her protectors remained hers. Inside the palace, Elric was rushed to the healer's chambers, the Arcane Order swiftly securing the area with protective enchantments. Lyra remained at Elowen's side, her keen gaze tracking every movement of the healer as she worked. Elowen stood by the bedside, watching in quiet dread as the healer's hands moved over Elric's wounds. A low chant filled the air, magic pulsing faintly as his injuries were tended to. But even as the healing light settled over him, Elowen could see the damage. Deep wounds carved into his flesh, his skin deathly pale, his breathing unsteady. "He will live," the healer murmured, her voice gentle but firm, "but his body will need time to recover." Relief loosened the tension in Elowen's shoulders, her eyes briefly fluttering shut. For the first time since the ambush, she allowed herself a sliver of hope, but hope could only carry her so far. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. Lord Castian Vale. His presence was a cold wind in the room, his sharp eyes gleaming with calculation.
"Ah!"
he mused, a faint smile curling his lips. "I see the princess has taken matters into her own hands, a bold decision." Elowen's jaw tightened, but she refused to turn from the healer. "It is my right to do so, Castian," she said, her voice calm, but edged with quiet authority. His smile thinned. "Of course, Your Highness," he replied smoothly. But you must know that there are consequences for defying tradition. The Arcane Order is not a substitute for the Royal Guard, nor the Mercenary Order. The kingdom has laws, and even you cannot rewrite them so easily." Elowen glanced toward the doorway, where Sir Golwyn stood, arms crossed, silent but watchful. A subtle nod from him was all she needed. Her decision was final. "I have made my choice," she said, meeting Castian's gaze without wavering, "and I will not be bound by outdated customs." Castian's expression darkened, his posture stiffening, before he inclined his head in mock deference and swept from the room. A palace under siege. With Elric secured under the healer's care, Elowen stepped into the long, dimly lit corridor. The palace walls, once familiar and comforting, felt cold, like relics of an era that no longer fit her. The Arcane Order had proven their loyalty in ways that even her own blood had not. The Royal Guard, though still bound to her family, remained distant, torn between duty and tradition. The mercenary order under Sir Golwyn had aligned with her choices, but their loyalty had limits. The kingdom, the palace, the legacy she had inherited, it was all shifting beneath her feet. Dark forces were stirring, Castian's games were tightening their grip, and she was done playing by their rules. Standing by the window, she gazed into the night, feeling the weight of the battles to come. This time she would not wait for the world to decide her fate. This time she would fight for it.